David, before we launch into the political news of the day, let's talk about the World Series, Yankees or Dodgers?
I'm going to go, because you're a Yankee fan, I'm going to have to pick the Dodgers.
Fair enough. Should we put, let's kind of make this a bet. Loser buys the other person lunch.
Deal.
I don't do lunch, but we'll figure something
Maybe,
out.
I know
Yeah.
you're...
All right, let's make it brunch. Late breakfast. Okay, fair enough. At my choice of restaurant, unless you win, in which case it'll be at your choice, okay?
Yeah, okay.
We're good.
Snowden Deli it is.
Fine, either way. All right, let's get to it. A couple of things. I want to, the thing that, and we talked about it with Jim Menney and Colton Prale, the CTV News reporter, the fact that nothing now, given what's gone on in Ottawa, nothing is getting done in terms of bills, regulations, anything. And he mentioned one, people may have forgotten this by now, that whole debacle over the capital gains tax, with this stalemate that's happening in the House of Commons, that's not even in effect.
Right. And obviously, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are trying to show that the Liberals are paralyzed, nothing is working, Parliament is not working, so why not just call an election? They're trying to convince the Bloc and the NDP of this, but right now, Canadians and people who support the Liberals, the Bloc, and the NDP right now in Canada are clearly saying they're not ready for an election. So this strategy can work only for a time, and it does create a small opening for Justin Trudeau in the sense that if he can finally come up with a quick set of policies that can help ordinary Canadians, average Canadians, right away quickly, and then he can point the finger at Pierre Poilievre. See, we're trying to do real things to help real people, and the only people that are stopping us from getting this done are the Conservatives. Maybe he can start scoring points. And does that mean Parliament prorogation and playing parliamentary, procedure strategies? Maybe that's going to be a thing. But right now, it's inside baseball, and I think it's a pock on all the houses, actually, because it just says, government's not working for anybody right now. Obviously, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts the Liberals, but it also hurts Pierre Poilievre in the long run.
Well, I was going to say, to your point about, the government being paralyzed, how can you criticize the government for being paralyzed when you're the one causing the paralysis?
Well, there you go. And so, and again, I get that Justin Trudeau's government is 20 points down and nothing seems to be working right now. But if the election is in the spring or could still be in the fall of 2025, at some point, this arrogance, this attitude, this negativity, especially if the economy starts to rebound, especially if Donald Trump wins in 2 weeks, there could be a set of circumstances where certain middle-of-the-road Ontarians, because this election will be decided in Ontario, and that's where the shift has gone from the Liberals to the Conservatives in a massive way, and that's why the polling is where it is right now. At some point, some people will say, well, enough of this, and maybe they'll start looking at an alternative. Will Justin Trudeau be able to provide that alternative? Because now he's freed from the NDP confidence and supply agreement. So he can go more to the center. Now, will he be able to do that? Does he have the horses to do it? We'll see. But right now, at some point, people are going to start saying, well, what is that a conservative government? What are you going to do for me to help me in my everyday life? And to that question, the Conservatives have never provided an answer yet.
Can I ask, with reference, you just brought up the U.S. election, so how does that come into play, David?
The way I see it is that, let's say Donald Trump wins. There is polling, and there's a lot of polling in Canada and in Quebec. I'll give you just one example. During the holidays, there's always these massive polls. Last holiday season, there was this poll in Quebec. What do you fear most? And number one was, of course, inflation, cost of living. 2 was housing. 3 was crime. 4 was a Trump presidency. And so the idea that an extremist like Trump, and we know when we're reading these stories, a lot of decisions, both economic and social, but mainly economic decisions, both in Canada and in the U.S., are currently on hold until we find out who will be the next president of the United States. If it's Donald Trump, the strategy of Justin Trudeau will be to depict Pierre Poilievre as basically Trump light. And the extremism, which is in the Conservative caucus right now, which has been relatively under wraps so far. There have been certain incidents in the last year or two, but not many. But if Donald Trump becomes president, there could be an opening there to exploit Donald Trump's extremism and saying, well, we cannot afford to have basically Trump light, which would be Pierre Poilievre. So the Liberals are going to try that card, and in my opinion, it will play in certain parts of the Canadian electorate.
Yeah, it's funny as you say that. I think to myself, imagine Trump wins, and then that sort of emboldens Pierre Poilievre kind of in a way to suggest, hey, it was good enough for them.
Yeah.
I'm him without saying I'm him, and therefore it should be good enough for me. I wonder if that actually brings people to him saying, hey, Trump's president anyway, might as well have our Trump in here, if you can make that analogy.
There you go. Well, take an issue like abortion. Let's remember back, there were elections here in Quebec, when people like Leslyn Lewis and part of that anti-abortion caucus in the Conservative Party of Canada, raised up their heads, this issue played in Quebec. It had an impact in both the 2019 and 2021 elections.
Mm-hmm.
And so and the whole social conservatism angle that Trump plays on could backfire and could be a source of political strategy for Justin Trudeau, saying, hold on a second, do you really want this? Do you really want to turn Canada into basically a Trump-like government?
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on. I want to talk about...
I'm not saying it will work.
No, I understand, but that might be the ploy. Okay.
Yeah.
So today we have a story I saw Paul St. Pierre Plamondon talking about the situation at Bedford School, which I think has made a lot of people sit back and go, how could this be happening right under our noses and nobody either know about or do anything about it? One of his comments today, David, was him saying there are not enough Quebec-born students in our schools here.
Yeah,
what's that about?
Scary stuff. And it's not the first time. And if there's still anybody, especially in the older generations, who grew up with the Parti Québécois of René Lévesque and Pauline Marois, for example, and some sort of social democratic, left-wing, left-leaning type of philosophy with the Parti Québécois, please now understand that this is over. The Parti Québécois is a right-wing party, playing off the same themes of immigration, fear, division, and also using it as a wedge, and giving us the same types of ultra-nationalist themes that we've seen in Europe, that we're seeing in the U.S., and so this is very scary stuff. Club St. Pierre Plamondon is basically trying to take advantage of this and go even further to the extreme of the Legault government, calling for a new Bill 21 that should be to go even further. Which, by the way, listen to the shows, how toothless and how, cosmetic Bill 21 actually was, because it doesn't even address anything that's going on in Bedford. But the real issues right now, Aaron, instead of trying to scapegoat immigration and trying to scapegoat people who were not born here, which, by the way, would include my father. And so the idea is that, first of all, this was not just the failure of one set of people. This was not just the service center's failure. This was not only the union's failure, but that old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. It is true. And so it's the entire community. These 11 teachers, the allegations in this report, which are damning, these 11 teachers felt empowered, felt they had the right, felt they had the latitude to bring religion into the mix at Bedford. And that means that there's going to have to be a real understanding that if we do believe in these fundamental democratic principles of separation of church and state and no religion in our schools, well, the fact is that it means talking with the community as a whole. It's not just the union, it's not just the government, it's not just the service center. It's also going and talking to the community. That means talking to the mosque, talking to the imams, talking to the parents association, getting everybody involved. That means getting also the city councilors involved. Stephanie Valenzuela, for example, who's the city councilor over there. Des McGraw, and Michelle Sitlakwe, who are the M&As. Talking with people about these fundamental principles and also understanding that we need also to stop being scared of the teachers' unions. That means there's going to have to be a professional order of teachers. It's one of the rare major professions in our society that does not have an independent watchdog to oversee the profession. Two, it shows that the abolition of the abolishing school boards was a mistake, because when you see, without the school boards, you don't have those elected officials. You don't have that distance between public officials and the machine, the civil servants, who are too close to the problem and don't have the wherewithal and are not necessarily able to deal with problems like this, or don't have the competence, or are too meshed in to the situation to really have the distance to take tough stands on these issues. And finally, the other big question here, Aaron, is that while we have to talk about Bedford, but is this going on elsewhere?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we have to make sure that we need to talk about this, and we need to have real conversation. But as a community, this is not about scapegoating. Again, the right-wing parties, the nationalists, are trying to use this to scapegoat a segment of the population. It has nothing to do with where you're born. This is about a fundamental principle of our society that we have all agreed with, is that we have secularism. We do agree with that. And we have all adhered to this as a fundamental principle of building our society. And so we separate church and state, and that means in schools, public schools, you don't do religion. But the idea here is that right now, if those 11 teachers felt they could do this, it's because they were empowered to do so. And it goes beyond just the school. And so we have to understand that there is an effort. We have to get involved in our communities, parent teachers, other leaders, other associations, but also talk to the religious communities and engage and say, hold on a second. Here in Quebec, here in Canada, these are the values, and this is how it works. But it goes with dialogue. It goes with exchange. It does not go with persecution, division, hate, and accusation.
It does make you wonder, David, if this story had not been dug up by a journalist, would we even have found out about this?
Exactly. But that means that means it's very serious. And the way, and especially the way both the union and the service center, can you believe this, Aaron? The service center put out a press release on a Saturday night announcing the suspension of the 11 teachers at 9:04 p.m. Think about that. You've been doing radio how long? Have you ever seen that? A press release at 9:04 p.m. on a Saturday to announce the suspension of anybody? The fact that the director of the service center said on Thursday, I did not know until that day the names of the people, of the 11 teachers? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and then the minister coming out and supporting her, by the way, right? Saying, no, there's no reason to get rid of this person.
Well, that's also the big problem of the mammoth and the difficulty of an education minister. And I saw it firsthand with my colleagues who were at education when I was in the Couillard government. It is such a difficult ministry to manage, and there are cliques. It's one of those ministries where there's literally the state within the state. And Bernard Drinville, last night at Tout le monde en parle, basically turned it towards the union. And the union does bear responsibility in this. It has a role. Unions have a role in these types of situations, and they can't just turn away and say, oh, it's not our problem. It's everybody's problem. But it also goes beyond government, Aaron. It goes beyond unions. It's the entire community that has to be very, very mindful of this, because on the one hand, we have to work at democratic principles. We can't just take everything for granted, as we're seeing in the U.S. election. It is a clear choice between democracy and fascism, but the slippery slope is there. But at the other end, if we don't take care of it, it also opens the door to these extremist statements like the one heard today by Paul-Saint-Pierre Plamondon, starting attacking people about where they're born. Where are we heading? This is not what Quebec or Canada is built on.
David,
and we have to stand up for it.
We're going to leave it there. Lots more, I'm sure, to be discussed on this. Thanks so much.